What's going on, folks? Welcome to Age of Impact with Dr. Kamal Jones. I am Dr. Kamal Jones. On today's episode, we are digging into the 2025 election results. We are actually here in the heart of downtown Manhattan, where just yesterday, Zohran Mamdani was elected the youngest mayor in about a century here in New York City. We are going to break down what this means for families of New York and how you and your family might make the most use of this new mayoral election. Part of what we want to talk about is what does it mean for a 34-year-old millennial to be in charge of a government of 300,000 government workers, be in charge of and responsible for over 8 million New Yorkers, and to take on the mantle of responsibility that this building right here next to us holds. We find ourselves right outside of City Hall, where in just a couple of short months, Zohran Mamdani will be taking on the threshold of Mayor of New York City. There's a couple things I want to focus on today. The first is, how did we get to the place in which Zohran Mamdani, an unlikely candidate, was able to ascend to the highest seat of power here in New York City? Zohran is not the person who you as often see elected into a seat like New York mayor. He's young, millennial, 34 years old. He is a Muslim brother. He is someone who is a democratic socialist. He is, for a number of reasons, an unlikely candidate. And yet, here he is in the highest seat of power. At the core, the reason that Mamdani was able to win was because of a lasered focus on affordability. And we saw this for candidates across the country. Folks like Abigail Spanberger in Virginia focused in her governor run on affordability. Similar, Mikey Sherrill in New Jersey focused around the issue of affordability. What was clear was that if you focus on affordability, you will get the attention of anyone, let alone New Yorkers, where we are in one of the most expensive cities in the world, certainly the most expensive city in our country here. So a dogged focus on affordability is what brought us to this point. And it is really telling for us that we are in a new time. For about a decade, the main thing that folks ran on was that they were not Donald Trump. And what we have found now is that that is not good enough. We are entering a period in which we are very shortly to be on the other side of Donald Trump. And so now people are expecting you to actually be running on something to uplift them, to make a difference in their actual material goods and success of their family. And so when we think about what happens next, it's really here in New York City about holding Mamdani to the very promises that he made and the hope that he injected for many people who are struggling in the city. Zohran made a couple of promises, and for our folks who are watching who have a family in New York City, but also for anyone around the country, there are real things for us to focus on about how well he is actually able to execute on those things. I want to focus on three things. First is his promise around housing costs. Second is his promises around childcare. And thirdly is his promises around transportation, in particular around free busing in the city. So on the question of housing, there are two main things that Mamdani's campaign focused on. The first is on freezing rents for rent-stabilized units. He wants to freeze the rents for about 1 million rent-stabilized units in New York City so that landlords cannot keep bringing those prices up. The second thing that he wants to do is to build about 200,000 developments here in New York City so that there can be more housing options available for those who are interested. The big challenge for him here is one, power, and two is money. On the power side, as far as rent stabilization is concerned, it's totally plausible. He is the one who selects the folks who make the decisions around rent stabilization and rent freezing. And so he should be in position to actually push for this. But what is the financial implication for landlords if there is no new housing revenue that is able to be as easily developed, particularly in these rent stabilized units? As far as the development of over 200,000 additional units, it is how is he going to pay for this that has continued to come up as a question and concern. So one of Mamdani's major plans is free busing for folks all throughout New York City. His plan would cost roughly $700 million annually. It's a real question because that's going to require cooperation with the governor and with the New York State legislature. So we'll see if he's actually able to deliver on it. On the issue of childcare, Mamdani's plan is to offer free universal childcare for New Yorkers from 6 weeks of age all the way to 5 years of age. Not just for those who are low income, but for any New Yorker who is in need or wants to use the government-based childcare options. Again, the question becomes twofold. One is who is going to actually fill these roles, right? There are a number of folks who work in childcare who are already struggling to make ends meet because there's not enough funding for those who already are working as childcare workers. But then two is even if you are able to get enough childcare workers to actually do these jobs, how will this be paid for? This plan would cost about $8 billion per year, but we know that New Yorkers are struggling with access to childcare. And if he's able to deliver on this promise, if he's able to build on the work of folks like de Blasio, who increase access to all 4-year-olds for universal pre-K, if he's able to actually deliver on this, it would make a real material difference for New York's families. So the question becomes, can these goals actually be accomplished for the average New York family, or is it typical politician rubbish? With a housing plan that costs about $100 billion over a decade, a childcare plan that costs roughly $8 billion annually, and a free bus program which would run about $700 million a year, it's a fair question to ask. Now, Mamdani's team has proposed a two-part plan to pay for all three of these changes. The way it would be paid for would be from a 2% flat tax on those who are the wealthiest in the city, making over $1 million a year, and on increasing the corporate tax from 7 some odd percent up to upwards of 11%, which would be in line with the tax rate in New Jersey. The thing for both of these is that they would require cooperation with the governor and with the state legislature if they were actually to take place. That tax change has a lot of corporations reeling at the very idea of having to come out of pocket more. And already Governor Hochul has poured some cold water on the idea of any new taxes. But Mamdani believes that that is the best way to actually pay for some of these services that he has been discussing. The question is, without the governor's support, can it actually be delivered on, or will he have to go another path? And so for families, these are the things that we really need to keep an eye on. Can he actually deliver on housing? Can he actually deliver on childcare? Can he actually deliver on making transportation more affordable in this city? And I would say that if this can be delivered on by Mamdani and his team here in New York City, it can be a blueprint for folks all over the country who are looking for how to make their cities more affordable. So what does this actually mean for you and your family? The most important thing for our folks, especially here in New York, is to follow closely how these plans are actually executed on and to show up as discussions are being had about how they are actually going to unveil these plans and make sure that they're not just not doing things that they said they were going to do. So I'm going to put the information for Mamdani's office in the bio and in the descriptions so you can make sure you're keeping tabs on the most up-to-date things. And as always, make sure that you're following us because we're going to be following these stories over the months and the years ahead to see what is actually being delivered for the people of New York. And as an example, for the people all over the country. Okay, my friends, that is our episode today. Thank you for tuning in to Age of Impact with Dr. Kamal Jones. We will catch you for our next episode next week, Thursday. Until then, make sure that you subscribe, make sure that you like the episode, make sure you do all the things that are needed to make sure you do not miss a single episode as we talk about all the things happening around our country and what they mean for your family and for your loved ones. And until next time, this is Age of Impact.